Very interesting, remembering why you got married in the first place. Money is definitely a big stressor, and I think especially with this economic downturn, what a lot of couples have found is they really did overextend themselves. That, the good times were good and everybody had 2.5 cars and a pool and a big house, and maybe that wasn't the wisest thing to do, and stressing over how to now deal with it when you can't afford it certainly puts a cloud over a marriage. So Lon, since you're the money guy, when you deal with couples, and I'm sure that you have clients who are finding themselves in that kind of situation, it's not easy. You don't want to give up everything that you've built up. So how do you deal with a couple when they come in like that?
And what's tough is because for so long, or at least the last 10, 15 years, we've been busy keeping up with the Joneses. And now you're faced with a reality where you no longer can keep up with the Joneses, and you're going to have to make tough decisions. And really, I think it comes back down to your core goals, your core beliefs from the standpoint of, we all, or from a standpoint of society, we had SUVs for SUVs. And now we're realizing that is this asset or is this particular item that we purchased really going to help us towards our goals? And that's where I think it's a good point, and Kathy, you alluded to it earlier, is that we need to get back to focusing on our financial planning and our financial goals as a couple, and whether or not this asset can help us achieve that goal. I think right now is where you need to make some tough decisions, and it's not about keeping up with the Joneses anymore, it's about keeping up with us. It's about keeping up with yourself.
Now, Peggy, when you are talking to couples who might be going through this, do you try to show them that this could be an opportunity? Don't look at it as this horrible thing that's happening in your life, but as we've been talking about, reassessing and planning and doing all that stuff, how do you convince them when they're having this problem that it's an opportunity, perhaps?
Well, it's an opportunity for a lot of couples who haven't been talking to start talking. And a lot of them are in trouble because they haven't been talking. Not doing, paying the bills together, not making a team effort. One pays the bills and the other person doesn't know. I have couples where checkbooks are hidden, and not knowing where their spending budgets are at, So again, this is just an unbelievable opportunity for couples to really start talking. And sometimes when they initially come to counseling, and it could be about all other kinds of aspects, and when we start to get at the core of things, we find sometimes that financial is the core of the whole issues. It's kind of about that it's not about the underwear on the floor that they're really discussing. It's more at the core, and a lot of times it's financial. And once they start to talk about this, and again, understand where each other's coming from, understanding that blueprint, understanding each other's expectations, and understanding that it's for some couples, it's almost a new beginning to say, okay, we need to reassess what our priority is and how much, there's so much emotion that plays into this for couples. And if you have a couple, we talked earlier, if you have a couple where one's a thinker and kind of a personality type, one's a thinker and one's an emotion. Well, the thinker's, he's making decisions based on logic. The feeler is making decisions based on emotion. And sometimes those two clash. Again, they're both on the same page of what their ultimate goal is, but it's the way they're talking and communicating it and trying to understand that about each other.
Now, we're also coming to this at the perspective that both people are going to come together and work this out. But, there'll always be a couple where maybe the guy went out and bought a Corbett and didn't, talk to the wife first, or maybe the wife has, an online gambling addiction that she's, going through the money and doesn't want to, face that. So that adds another wrench into the works, I imagine. Any suggestions, Kathy, on what couples can do when there's secret spending?
Secret spending. Well, we were talking about that earlier too, and I think the person needs to come clean. I think that's really what will help turn things around, is if that person that has that secret realizes that that's only going to dig them into a bigger hole. So coming clean and then saying, okay, I want to change. I want us to have a life that's under control in terms of finances. And I think if couples move in that direction, even just taking baby steps, they'll start to feel less pushed down and more liberated. And it's a tremendous feeling to be able to say, yes, I can make a difference. I can actually turn things around. I can start living a life where I'm not a victim of circumstances. I'm really choosing how I live. And it is about letting go of the keeping up with the Joneses and really doing what makes sense for that particular couple.
Well, that leads into our final question and our final clip for our couples. How do you invest in your marriage?
Keep on doing things together.
Doing
Seminars like this are always good.
We're taking a trip in a couple weeks to get away.
Get away from life together if you can.
I think you have to be purposeful. One of the things that we maintain is every week we have a date night. Every Friday, it would be our date night.
I would say it's about taking risks and being willing to ask the tough questions and speak up when your feelings are hurt about something, and to not let those bricks be laid that build the wall between you, as we talk about all the time, and be willing to put the time in that it takes. Be a good listener. It's all about investing in each other.
I like our couples. I think they have some really good insights, and obviously they've worked through some of these issues themselves. Let's start with you, Kathy, because we were alluding to it right before we went to the clip about the things that you need to do, but specifically, what can couples do? You're having financial problems. You know, things are easier when you have money. Suddenly, when you don't have money, you have to be a little more creative, I imagine.
Well, one of our couples actually earlier talked about having some type of a cushion or emergency fund. And I think it may be tough right now to do that when money's a little tighter, but even if couples can take some steps in that direction. Another couple talked about, in this clip, talked about having time for each other, really taking time, whether it's a walk or a date night or just a time each week where they sit down over dinner and just chat about their week and what went well and what didn't, and showing appreciation too. I think even thanking your spouse for the little things, that, you know, taking the dog out every morning or bringing the paper in, things like that. Listening and not always be, you know, worried about getting your point across, but listening to what the other person is going through. And not take the other person for granted. I think it's very easy when people are rolling along in their marriages to just kind of assume that everything's going to be fine. And then, you know, your spouse might be having a tough time at work, or there might be, they might be just really concerned about their job stability. So really being there and taking the time to listen, I think, is really important.
And Lon, I imagine you probably will tell your clients, you know, they don't have to go out for a $125 dinner on a Friday night. You know, they could do a picnic in the park, be a little creative.
Absolutely not. And that's where it's not, during these times, it's not a one-size-fits-all solution. Each couple is different in their blueprint. Each couple is different of how they have approached their finances in their marriage. Each couple is different from a goals and objectives standpoint. There's no one-size-fits-all solution here. And I think it is, where you alluded to it perfectly, and I agree 100%, is you take one small step at a time, to where it may be a scenario to where you don't go out, but you spend time with each other from a standpoint of take an extra half hour before you go to bed and just sit on the couch and talk over, you know, Coke or milk or, you know, anything like that. And I think also is to understand and realize is that there are a lot of people in their exact same positions. They are not alone. To seek professional advice from a counselor or from a coach or from an advisor, to get help to sort through these issues, to know that and understand that they can get through this, but they may need some help.
And as you've already said, that there's so much emotion tied to money, Peggy, that there's fear, there's guilt, there's resentment, shame. And sometimes when you're trying to talk to your spouse and they're having those emotions, it's hard to get through to that. And then the conversation's over and they don't go there anymore. So you have to, I'm sure, encourage your clients to just address those
Well,
things.
and sometimes they got to watch in the communication that because of the emotion tied into it, that it doesn't shut down communication. And sometimes I say that if you get to a point in the conversation, the discussion or argument, however they want to, refer to it as, take a break from it. You may need to take a break and walk away for 10, 15 minutes, reevaluate, because sometimes you got one person who needs to process. The feeler with the emotion comes sometimes almost shooting bullets at somebody with the emotional aspect of it, and it's sometimes they need to take a little bit of a breather and kind of just say, okay, we need a timeout, and then come back and start sitting talking to it.
Well, our time is up for today's show.